Society pretends not to fear the single man. They act as if he is a failure, a boy who never grew up, a man who could not attract a partner. They call him selfish, bitter, immature. They mock him in television shows and sitcoms, portray him as a lonely neighbor with nothing to offer. But beneath the mockery is something else, a quiet unease. Because deep down, they know he is something they cannot control. You see it in the way people talk about marriage. They celebrate the engaged. They toast the newlyweds. They respect the husband who takes on 2 jobs to pay for his family's comfort. They nod approvingly when a man stays in a dead city, stuck in a dead job, because his wife does not want to move. They call that loyalty, responsibility, maturity. Yet if a man chooses differently, if he chooses not to marry, not to tie himself to someone else's demands, they don't call it maturity. They call it selfishness. The same choice that makes him free makes him, in their eyes, dangerous. And here is the reason a married man is predictable. His energy is divided, his priorities clear. He must earn, he must provide, he must sacrifice. He is a cog that fits neatly into the machine. He pays taxes for children, he consumes for the household, he bends for his spouse. He does what society expects because he must. He has no choice. If he refuses, he risks losing everything: children, home, stability, reputation. In short, he is owned. The single man is not. A single man answers to no one. He can take opportunities when they come. He can leave a city, a job, even a country, without hesitation. He can disappear into silence for a week, a month, a year, and nobody has a legal claim to his time. That is why society mocks him, why it tries to brand him as incomplete. Because what they cannot control, they must discredit. Marriage itself is presented as a romantic union. The fairy tale of 2 souls becoming one, of lifelong commitment, of building together. But the truth sits underneath the story. It is not just 2 people promising loyalty. It is a man signing a contract with the state. It is a man legally binding his resources, his future, his identity, to a framework designed to extract value from him. Love may be personal, but marriage is political. Love can fade, but the contract remains. A man marries not only a woman, but the government that enforces that contract. He is bound by law to provide, even if she leaves. He is bound to lose, even if betrayal occurs. And should children come, the chain tightens further, for the child is not fully his. From birth, the state steps in. Schools shape the child. Governments tax his future. Culture molds his identity. The man believes he is raising a son or daughter, but often he is raising a worker, a consumer, a citizen trained to obey. The father becomes a sponsor, not a sovereign. And yet, they tell men this is their highest purpose. That to marry and reproduce is to fulfill their destiny. That not doing so is unnatural, but ask, unnatural to whom? To the man himself, or to the system that depends on his sacrifice? The machine does not fear a man who dutifully feeds it. It fears the man who opts out. This is why single men are painted as lonely, broken, depressed. Because if the truth were allowed to spread, that solitude can be a source of strength. That freedom can be richer than obligation. The entire story society tells about family and duty would begin to unravel. People might begin to wonder whether the path of endless compromise and sacrifice is the only path, and the system cannot afford that kind of questioning. Yet solitude is not loneliness. The single man knows this. He knows that silence can be more nourishing than endless chatter. That night spent in his own company can be more fulfilling than nights spent trying to please someone else. He knows that books, projects, passions, even the simple act of walking without obligation, bring a clarity most men never taste. The married man must divide himself. He must consider wife, children, family, expectations. He cannot live fully for himself because he is responsible for others. And responsibility can be noble, yes, but it can also be a cage. The single man, by contrast, is whole. He is undivided. He can pour himself entirely into thought, into creation, into discovery. He becomes not half of a partnership, but a complete being in himself. Nietzsche understood this kind of man. He called them free spirits, those who refuse to bend to duty, tradition, or expectation. He saw them as dangerous to society precisely because they broke the mold. They did not follow the herd. They did not marry because they were told to marry. They did not reproduce because it was expected. They sought their own path, even if it meant walking alone. And it is that aloneness that makes them powerful. But power unsettles those who do not have it. Married men, bound by duty, look at the single man and feel something they cannot admit: envy. They see his freedom, his lightness, his ability to choose without asking permission, and it gnaws at them. They cannot say it aloud, so they laugh at him instead. They call him immature, irresponsible, lonely, anything to dismiss what he represents. Because if they acknowledged the truth, that he has something they traded away, they would have to face their own regret. The single man does not demand their approval. He does not need their understanding. He simply lives. He is a reminder that compromise is not inevitable, that chains can be refused. That life does not have to be spent in service to others. And that reminder is dangerous, because it threatens the foundation of the story society tells about men, that their worth comes from what they give up. But what if a man refuses to give up? What if he decides that his worth comes not from sacrifice, but from sovereignty? That he does not need to be half of a couple, but can be whole in himself. That he does not need children to justify his existence, but can create meaning through his own mind and work. Such a man becomes untouchable. They cannot guilt him. They cannot shame him. They cannot use his responsibilities against him, because he carries none. He is free in a way that others only dream of, and that freedom terrifies them. They will tell you freedom is empty. They will insist that life without marriage and children is meaningless. But notice something. Those who insist the loudest are usually the ones most shackled by regret. They are men who surrendered their freedom early, who traded their youth for stability, who now look back and wonder where their time went. To admit that the single man may have chosen wisely would be to admit that their own sacrifices were not necessary. And few men have the courage to admit they volunteered for their own chains. So they project. They say, "You'll die alone," but the truth is every man dies alone, whether in a hospital bed surrounded by family or in a quiet room by himself. They say, "You'll have no one to take care of you." Yet how many fathers are abandoned by their children in nursing homes, visited once a year out of obligation? They say, "You'll regret it." But regret comes in many forms, and the regret of wasted freedom is heavier than the regret of solitude. Look at how the system functions. It does not reward the man who lives for himself. It rewards the man who conforms. Promotions often go to the family man, the one who appears stable, invested, rooted. Loans and credits are easier when you show dependence. Tax breaks favor the married. The culture smiles on men who take on burdens, not men who walk lightly. And so most men follow the script, not because they want to, but because the cost of deviation feels too high. But the single man who refuses that script, he becomes a crack in the farce aid. He proves it is possible to live without compromise. He shows that a man can own his time fully, can shape his life without permission. That is why he is mocked, criticized, even pitied. Not because he is weak, but because he is strong in a way they cannot be. The truth is, society runs on men who are willing to give themselves away. Men who clock in at jobs they hate for children who will resent them. men who put their passions aside to provide for wives who may grow bored of them, men who exhaust their bodies and souls in service to a legacy that may not even be remembered. The machine needs these men. It feeds on them. Without their sacrifices, it starves. The single man refuses to be food, and so society invents a language to keep him in line. Loneliness, immaturity, irresponsibility, words designed to sting, to pull him back toward the herd. But words cannot change the reality of freedom. They cannot undo the fact that he answers to no one. They cannot alter the silence of his room at night, where he sits with his thoughts, unburdened, free. Do not misunderstand. The single man is not without struggle. His road is not easy. To live without compromise means to carry the weight of one's own choices fully. There is no partner to share the blame, no family to hide behind. There are no excuses. This can be frightening. It requires courage, discipline, and strength. Many men are not capable of it, which is why they convince themselves they never wanted it. But for those who are capable, the reward is unmatched. The single man owns his mornings. He decides when he wakes, where he goes, what he builds. He owns his nights. He can read, travel, write, create, or simply exist without interruption. He owns his future. He is not bound to sacrifice decades for obligations that no longer serve him. His time belongs to him. His mind belongs to him. His life belongs to him. And what terrifies them most is that he does not need their validation. A husband wants his wife's approval. A father wants his children's respect. A worker wants his boss's praise. But the single man can live without applause. He does not need to be told he is valuable. He knows it in the way he lives. This is why single men throughout history have often been the thinkers, the writers, the prophets, the rebels. They are not tied down by endless compromise. They are free to see the world clearly without the fog of obligation. They can question, create, imagine. Their lives are not diluted by the demands of others. Their solitude sharpens them. Yet when they appear, society recoils. A man who does not bow to duty, who does not kneel before the altar of family, threatens the entire order. He is a reminder that obedience is not inevitable. He is living proof that another way exists, and that proof is intolerable to a system built on conformity. So they fear him, not because he is violent, not because he is destructive, but because he is free. Look closely at the ones who criticize him most. Often, they are men who envy him in silence. They watch him walk lightly while they drag chains behind them. They resent him for choosing what they could not, and so they laugh, they mock, they call him incomplete. But deep down, they know the truth. He carries something they lost long ago. Women fear him too, though for different reasons. A man who cannot be manipulated with guilt, who cannot be tied down with promises, who does not fear being alone, is a man who cannot be controlled. He becomes unpredictable. He becomes a threat, not because he harms, but because he cannot be harnessed. And so they label him immature, toxic, cold. Anything to hide the fact that he is beyond their grasp. But the single man is not bitter. He does not hate what he has refused. He simply sees it clearly. He understands the cost of compromise, and he has chosen not to pay it. He knows that marriage and children may bring joy to some, but also chains to many. He has chosen his path, and he walks it without apology. The world will continue to mock him. They will call him selfish, arrogant, incomplete. They will insist that he will regret his choice. But their words are hollow, because at night, when he closes his eyes, he does not wonder what could have been. He knows. He knows he chose freedom. He knows he belongs to himself, and that knowledge is enough. The single man is not an accident. He is not a mistake. He is not broken. He is a man who refused to be owned. And in a world that survives on ownership, that makes him the most dangerous man alive. because his existence is a mirror. He reminds them that every sacrifice they made was a choice, that they did not have to marry, did not have to surrender, did not have to give themselves away. He reminds them that they could have chosen differently, and it is that reminder, not his solitude, not his freedom, that they fear most of all. For he proves, simply by living, that they were never as trapped as they believed. They only lacked the courage to be free.